Welcome to the Bridge the Gap podcast. Here's your host, Dustin Udke.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Bridge the Gap. We got a great episode for you tonight. We're going to be talking how to make trades in your fantasy football. We're at that time of year where you're looking to maybe add that last piece for the championship run. Maybe you realize that you're out of it. You took our advice from a couple of weeks ago on when to rebuild, when not to, and you realize that maybe this isn't your year and you're looking towards next year. So we're going to talk how to make your trades. We already talked about when. Now we're going to talk about how to do that. And I've got someone great to bring on with you. The one, the only, you know him, Mr. Hoov, HoovTube on Twitter machine. He is from Optimus Fantasy and Club Fantasy. Hoov, how's it going tonight?
Heyo, what is up, my Wisconsinite friend? Oh, it's so great to be back, be with you. We've made such great art whenever we get in front of a screen together. So let's break down the trades. Let's do it because, oh man, last time we got together, we talked about Tony Pollard, Tyjae Spears. You were right about that one. I just wanted to come on, Thank you. So you're right, but oh man,
I was also right about Bucky Irvin and Rashad White. I told you wouldn't be able to trade Bucky Irvin. You wouldn't be able to trade Rashad White to get Bucky Irvin.
I don't know if we're there yet, but
I think we're pretty close.
I did pick up a share of Bucky Irving in a league that I needed a running back based off your recommendation. So
there you go.
Yes, we're moving towards a Bucky Irving hype train over here as well.
I like it. So before we get started, tell everybody where they can find you, what you got going on this year.
All right. Well, I actually just announced it I just got off a trade block before I jumped on here and I wanted to share it. So I'll share it here as well. I work at Optimus Fantasy and Club Fantasy, FFL. So you guys can check out my work over there at both places. At Club Fantasy, I do a weekly show breaking down dynasty trades and trade value. So I feel like that's probably why I was selected to be here tonight. And then as well as that, I do a weekly series over at Optimus Fantasy breaking down my favorite bets of the week. And I thought, what's the best way that I can put these bets to good use? And with the hurricane affecting the South right now, I thought, let's put $5 towards a parlay towards these bets, and whatever money is gained off of that, I'm going to donate the entirety towards hurricane relief. So I want you guys all to join me this weekend and check out the bets. Let me know if I'm in the right direction. I want to raise some money and help out some of these GoFundMes. So join along, and hopefully we can raise some money for all the people that are affected and needed right now. So $5, and I hope that you guys can all join me in doing that. Whenever the fantasy community, there's so many great sports bettors a part of this community that are so smart. Even if you put $5 towards a little parlay, raise some money, and then donate it all to hurricane relief, it goes a long way. So let's change some lives. So
I think that's awesome. I think that's an awesome way of doing it, right? Like you are still doing your sports betting, content for people, but you're saying, hey, if he's hit, I'm going to donate money. And I think we do have some great people out there. If you're watching this, maybe, follow us on Twitter and then, tag them in a quote tweet. Be like, hey, whoever it is that you like that does prop betting stuff, say, hey, why don't you try this out? Maybe we can raise some money in the fantasy community this week for Hurricane. Hurricane Helene is hitting. Hurricane Helene just hit. Now we have another one coming that's hitting Florida pretty hard, I think today, tomorrow. So hope prayers and good vibes up to everybody in the pathway of that. Hope everybody stays safe. I know we've got a couple of the fantasy community down there in that area, so hope everybody stays safe. If you're listening, we're thinking of you guys. We're doing what we can to help you guys out, raise money. I think that's awesome, Hoov.
I was on my mind all day today, and it was hard because I was thinking, I'm excited for the show, but I really want to raise money. So it was really close, but I was excited about both for sure. But we're here.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's great. I think using your platform to get that out there, I think is a great way of doing it. So props to you, man. And for those who don't know, me and Hoov live like half an hour from each other. Hoov's girlfriend and I share a birthday, which is coming up on Sunday. So happy birthday to Heidi. So make sure you can tell her happy birthday for me.
I will. And
we had a great time. We got to drive back from the expo this year together. Last minute kind of deal.
Oh yeah, it was great.
It's been a great time connecting with Hoov through fantasy football, and we talk about this a lot on the show. That fantasy football should be fun, and part of the fun is building community. And I think I've been able to do that with Hoov, so it's great to have you on finally.
Absolutely, I'm excited. I mean, like our friendship, I'm a lot different on camera sometimes than I am in person. Is that and Dustin's gotten to see that when we hang out, is that I'm very social on camera, and then when I'm in person, sometimes I get a little antisocial and I get into my bubble. And so like going to the Chicago Scott Fishbowl draft and like meeting him for the first time, and then us like
Packers
finally meeting
game.
face to face, and then going to the Packer game and like having that one-on-one time and really getting to know him, and obviously spending 8 hours on the way back. You really get to know someone. So we had a great time, and Heidi and I are actually going to the Dells this weekend to celebrate her birthday.
Oh,
So
very
happy
nice.
early birthday! Yeah,
Thank
we're
you.
gonna go celebrate.
Make sure you tell Heidi happy birthday for me.
I will, for sure.
Hoov, and now, for those who don't know, all these drops that I play on the show, Hoov helped make. He pretty much made all of them. I gave him some input, but he made them all. So Hoov, we start every episode off of this show with a game.
What exactly is the game?
Well, it is not a quiz or a trivia contest, nor is it a test of brute strength or athleticism. At its core, it's just a children's game, and I would wager that some of you here this evening have played Would You Rather?
So classic Would You Rather, Hoov. And we're talking trades, and unfortunately in the NFL today, since we have the salary cap, sometimes our favorite players get traded. So the Would You Rather is, would you rather have your favorite two players, whoever those currently are in the NFL, your favorite two players wind up on your rival team? So you're a 49ers fan, so is your biggest rival Rams, Seahawks, Cardinals? I don't know who's your biggest rival team to you. Is it the Packers because you live in Packer country?
No, I think I'm at the point where it's the Eagles. The 49ers Eagles rivalry. It's started to build the last few seasons, and as my dad being a Chiefs fan, I've grown up with him talking about his rivalries, and obviously we don't like the Rams, we don't like the Seahawks, but even being from Wisconsin and feeling the rivalry of the Bears Packers, I haven't felt a rivalry like that until it came down to the Eagles, and we deserve to be in that Super Bowl. If we didn't get hurt, we would have been there. I believe that, and we proved it the next year. So it's a rivalry for sure, and they have a great team, and it's probably going to be a rivalry for a few years to come. So, but I hope that we can be on the good side of it.
So the Would You Rather is, would you rather your favorite two NFL players get traded to the Eagles and win a Super Bowl with the Eagles, or your favorite team, the 49ers, wins the Super Bowl with but they acquire maybe your least favorite player in the league? So whether that's a Deshaun Watson, whether that's whoever it is, whether maybe they get Nick Sirianni, you don't like him as a coach. So your favorite team wins, but it's with players that you don't like, or it's players you like on a team you don't winning the Super Bowl. Which would you rather have?
I'll take a Super Bowl at any cost at this point. As a 49ers fan, my dad's beaten me in 2 Super Bowls with him being a Chiefs fan, and it's hard. It's been so hard, and I've been a fan even before when we went against the Ravens as well, and I had to watch Beyonce literally have such a bomb performance that the lights go out at halftime. So I think Beyonce screwed us out of a Super Bowl as well. So I'm a little bitter. I'll take a Super Bowl at any cost. So it doesn't matter who my least favorite player is. I'll take them if it helps. At one point, Richard Sherman was probably my least favorite player, and he did come to the Niners. So, and I earned a lot of respect from him.
I think I agree with you. As a Bills fan, I would love just a Super Bowl for the Bills. I don't care who it's with. Like, get Deshaun Watson, get Ezekiel Elliott, get Tyreek Hill, all the players I don't particularly care for. Get them all on the team. Like, I don't care. I want my team to win. Yes, there's players that I root for. Like, I love Zay Flowers and Tank Dell and CJ Stroud, and I would love for those guys to win Super Bowls, and I'll be happy for them, but I want my team. My team matters more than players at the end of the day, because it's not a one-on-one sport. It's a team sport. So even if they have the quarterback I don't like, and a coach I don't like, and the receiver I don't like, and there's still more players. There's the defensive players, there's the offensive linemen. There's going to be someone on the team that I'm going to like. So I take the team win every time.
Absolutely. I want to say that we won a Super Bowl before the Cowboys in the Quest to Six. Yeah. So I want that. And I want Kyle to finally have a Super Bowl to shut the haters up. Like, I'm craving it so bad, but it's a tough ask to do.
It is tough. And it's tough in this day and age with the schedule these players are on. We've seen injuries this year, especially rack up. The salary cap causes teams to have shorter windows for Super Bowl berths. Trades and free agency have caused a lot of things. If we're never going to see a dynasty like we saw with the Bills. I think the Chiefs are the closest thing, but right, Tyreek Hill was gone. They had a revamped offensive line. It's pretty much just been Mahomes and Kelsey for the bulk of that. I mean, a few other guys, Creed Humphrey and whatnot, offensive linemen, but it's hard to keep a solid core of, if you're talking 22 starters, between offensive defense, to keep a good number of those people together year in and year out just because of cap and injuries. So, but let's talk fantasy trades. So in general, how do you go about making a fantasy trade? What's your starting point when you're like, hey, I think I need to make a trade? Or should you make a trade? What's your starting point for that?
I always look at where I'm at in the league. I think that's like a really good indicator, is that if you're looking at your team and you're looking at like you'd be a good team in a lot of other leagues, but there's such a stacked team on one league that you're just still out of contention, or a few teams that are just so stacked you're out of contention. You kind of have to view that, or view, am I really low at a certain position? Or are there certain other teams that are really low at certain positions? I'm the guy that will be up till 2 a.m. You get a notification from Sleeper, and it's Hoov sending a 12-team trade. That's me. I'm that guy. It's like I always find a need for teams in my league. Sometimes my league mates, they don't feel the same way. It's like that there's a desperate need for a backup quarterback. Mm-hmm. But I feel that way. I feel like everybody, if you have a franchise guy, even if it's worth nothing, everyone should even out their backup quarterbacks. I'm that guy, and I'll make those kinds of moves. So I look at other people's rosters as well before determining it, because if I'm looking at someone like we're talking about Malik Neighbors earlier on Trade Block, if I know that Malik Neighbors is the only player that they have that's worth a damn on the roster, then I'm not going to get him, because the value to get him on that team is so much higher than it would be on going after someone like a Jalen Waddle on a contending team that maybe wants to split that value for more depth or something. So that's how I always look at it. I look as much on my team as I do on another team as well.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I'm known for having spreadsheets for all my leagues where I have every team color coded, and I can look at all the quarterback positions relative and running backs and wide receivers and tight ends. I go, okay, this team, I need a wide receiver. Who's got them? Okay, this team's got, 5 starters. They can only really start 3. Okay, what else do they do? Okay, they need a tight end. Do I have a tight end? And I can go that way. Or okay, they don't have I don't have a tight end. Maybe I can get one from this team, and parlay that. Look at where I'm deep and where I'm weak at. I think that's always a starting point of me, and I think that's how you have to go about trades, because we talk a lot about not winning the trade. Like, you don't have to win your trade, but you do have to make the trade favorable for both parties. And you can't go, hey, you've got, if you're in a super flex league and the guy's got Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts, he doesn't need a quarterback. Like, you can't trade him. Right. You're not going to be able to trade him Brock Purdy. He doesn't need Brock Purdy. The value's just going to be not there for him. He doesn't need him. So you have to look at where they're at, and that's where value is subjective to some course of, like, the value for this player to one team in your league versus another team in the league is going to be slightly different. What do you find is the best technique for engaging in trade talks? I think we see a lot of different methods. We see the unsolicited trade pick, right? Where it's just like throw random trade offers. We see the I get the DMs of, like, and I've sent them too, like, what's the value on player X, or what's the asking price for this position, or how do you value X player? What in your experience, what do you feel is the best way to engage another owner in trade talks?
That's each their own. It really is. I've really become more favorable in, I don't know where the rest of the league is feeling on players, so I'm just gonna set my limits on how I feel, and everyone else can accustom to me. And maybe that's a little narcissistic mindset to have, but I feel like everyone should have a little healthy amount of narcissism when it comes to like making decisions and stuff like that. You should always, at the end of the day, stand by your opinion over someone else's. I feel that very strongly. And so, like, I'm a person that I'll change the nicknames to, I want a second round pick, and first one to give me them, gets them, and at least players know then where I'm valuing these players when I do attach it. Like if I put Tucker Kraft as 2 second-round picks and you get a trade offer for Tucker Kraft, I'm not lowballing you. This is the asset that I have that has this amount of capital in it. And so I'm very big on that. I'm also a big person on if I like a deal and I feel like I'm giving up too much and I want to go for it, I'm just going to do the expiring trade at midnight. And if you don't jump on it and you're not present, because that's something that a lot of people deal with is non-existent managers that check it from time to time, is you don't know who's like actually as present throughout the league. So I'm very big on just doing end of day expiring trades. Come see it if you do. And then you also have the previous trade in the messages as well. So once they do finally say it, like, oh, I could have gotten Jaden Reed for a first round pick 2 weeks ago. Like, why didn't I just check this more?
Yeah.
So I do it that way just because like people can also know, like, I'm very engaging in trade talks with my league mates, and it's made me friends and it's also lost me friends. That's for sure.
Yeah, I think changing the nicknames, and you can do that on Sleeper, and I think you can do it on a couple other platforms, is a great way of setting the value for your players. Because I think, every trade platform has their trade block where you can just like, hey, this guy's available. And I think when people see that, they think they are available for cheap. But I think changing the nickname of Tuckcraft is worth 2 second-round picks. And then a lot of people are going to go, okay, that's what Hoov's valuing. Do I agree, disagree? Because I may go in and go, I think he's worth a first and a second. Oh, that's cheap for me. Or I might go, I don't think Tuckcraft's worth 2 firsts. I think he's worth one second or whatever it is. At least you have a baseline. I think that's where a lot of leagues that don't trade, I think that's the biggest issue right now, is there's no baseline of value for players. Because what you evaluate a player as, what I evaluate a player at, is unknown to everyone. So I may say this player is worth a first. You're saying he's worth 2 seconds. Is that equal? Is it not? Someone else may be like, he's worth a third. It brings up the topic of trade calculators. And what are your thoughts on trade calculators and how to utilize them? Because I think people look at them for a relative value. But do you find trade calculators to be helpful or hurtful in trade negotiations?
I think that they are helpful in determining like rankings and where things might lie, but they're not a hard indicator. Like if someone sends me if someone sends me a keep trade cut, we'll use KTC because that's what most people know. Is it great? No. But is it helpful? Sure, it's very helpful at times.
Yeah.
So if someone sends me a KTC trade and like it's even, I'll be like, okay, that's kind of where things are lying, but I might feel differently. Like this is something that trade calculators, I don't think that they really factor in as much, is that they factor in second round picks so highly that they almost factor in the idea of drafting a player like that around that cost. Is like, I'm a person, I use Brian Robinson as an example because like he was the best example last year. Is if you wanted to trade for Brian Robinson off my team, I drafted him as a second round pick. I think that he probably was in most eyes worth a second round pick. But if you want to get Brian Robinson from me, I want 2 opportunities to get the same player like Brian Robinson. And some trade calculators don't really factor that in. Like players also want to have to get rid of a player for a certain cost as well. And I want double the opportunities to get a player like that. So like the trade market is fun to play with because it almost is like inflated in certain areas, but not in the others. So you almost kind of have to like keep practicing what you preach. Otherwise, some teams just get really loaded with like draft picks, really loaded with talent and stuff, and then they can't really compensate for it.
Yeah. My thought is I think trade calculators, like you said, are a good tool, but they're not a rule. We have one at Dynasty Pros. If we want a trade calculator, let us know. We have a trade calculator that has IDP and Devi in it, so you can factor all those things if you play in those leagues. I look at it just like we look at analysts and their sit-start recommendations. At best, any analyst, and we all know this, is 70% of the time, right, on sit starts, right? we're going to hit 60 to 70% of the time. I think trade calculators have to be thought of in the same way. Like they are going to be right on values of players 60 to 70% of the time. And there's going to be 40 to 30% of the time they're just wrong. That they may, and wrong either way, they overvalue or undervalue a player or asset. And each trade calculator has their own skew and bent. We know to Keep Trade Cut because it's, crowdsourced. It seems like the draft pick value is really high. Some really value rookies, some really value veterans, some really value picks. But I just think you look at it and go, okay, if Keep Trade Cut says this is fair, and I look at maybe, a Fantasy Pros or maybe a Dynasty Pros one and go, okay, they all say they're fair, but they're all within, and the point difference. Some use 1,000 points as their high, some use 10,000 points, some use 100. It's all very different, so it's hard to judge it too. I really liked what Alex Korf, Peaked in High School Draft Sharks, does with his trade value charts, where he, kind of accumulates them all. I look at it and go, okay, if this is where the value is, the market value is, based on these trade calculators, I'm going to go 60% of that is what I think the value actually is on both sides, because I think they're going to be wrong 60. They're going to be only right 60 to 70% of the time, because that's just the nature of fantasy football. Is we're just never going to be fully right. If something was fully right all the time, fantasy football wouldn't be fun.
I know, and that's why I'm starting to not get as fun. I think I'm at 90.5% on sleeper of my start sit accuracy. So I'm starting the right guys, and I'm winning. It's not a competition anymore. I'm just kidding. But no,
so I think
it's very true what you're saying.
I think there's and I've said this before on this podcast and other conversations, that trade negotiations start before the trade negotiations start. And what I mean by that is that you need to be communicating with your league mates before you go to a trade. If your only time you're ever talking to your league mates is when you need a trade, you're probably less likely to get a trade done with that person.
That's a good point.
When you build a relationship with them outside of the trade negotiation, you glean more of their insight on football. So if you're talking to your league mates about, oh, hey, what do you think about this guy? Or how, oh, did you see this play by this guy? Oh, he looks so good, or whatever it is, just in random conversations about football, you're going to glean how they evaluate players, how maybe they see players. And then it allows you to go, hey, what would you do for X? Or, what would you trade Brian Robinson for? If you just go to a random person in your league and go, hey, would you do a second for Brian Robinson? You've never talked to that person. You're going in blind, and they're coming into it blind because they weren't expecting a trade offer. They haven't heard from you. They have no real clue who you are, other than you're in a league together. So you really need to start building those relationships before the trade negotiation starts, which I think is huge. I am not a fan of the unsolicited trade offer of just this random trade offer out of the blue for a guy I didn't really want. You got something like, oh, do you want this guy? I'm like, no. Like, they just sent me a trade, like, here's a trade offer. We're going to send you, I had someone just try to trade me. I think it was like Christian Kirk. I was like, I don't want Christian Kirk. Why are you trying to sell me Christian Kirk? At no point did I express interest in Christian Kirk.
Right. I think that's something too, is people need to do that more, is that they need to actually utilize the shown interest button on trades, is that it would conduct things so much easier if everyone actually just like labeled players that they were interested in. Some people do. I mean, like if you're the player that, and I'm guilty of this at times as well, is that you continuously keep adding the same players to the trade market to see if there's any interest as of now. People do that, and then like if you see the player that you're interested in, just go do it. Go show that you're interested, because then it's going to be like, all right, well, if no one's interested, I put all these players on the trade block again, and no one's sparked interest. Maybe there's not a market, and I might as well just hold on to these players. So,
and I think if you're going to put someone on the trade block, like, I think you're right. Put in not just that, but like put in their value. Like, I want to trade Brian Robinson for 2 seconds. So like, hey, he's available for 2 seconds. So people know, okay, I am interested. And I think the show interest button is nice. I think people, no one wants to tip their hand of like, oh, I'm interested in this guy. I don't want you to know, because it's going to drive up the price. So that's that psychology of like, do I show interest? Do I not show interest? I wish there wasn't those games that we had to play in trades. I wish it was just more often. I'm trying to make a trade right now, and I need a tight end, and I'm really trying to scoop up Eric All and Theo Johnson from a guy who has him in his taxi squad. But I don't want to like send a trade directly for those guys, because I feel like he'll try to price gouge me. So I'm like trying to like sneak them in on other trades. That's the kitschy thing. So there is a lot of psychology that goes into trades. And if you guys are watching, if you have trade questions for us, feel free to drop them in the comments on YouTube. Hop over here, Drop in the comments. We'll answer your trade questions if you have them. The psychology of trades is interesting because a lot of times people don't want to get price gouges. You don't want to win the trade, but you want to get a deal. Everybody wants a deal. So when you go with the trade, let's say you're talking to someone and they go, yeah, I'm interested in this person. Do you like to start with your best offer, or do you have a different kind of like trade tactic when it comes to value?
I will send what I think isn't offensive. Like if I send you something and you accept it right away, I don't want to be like, oh shit, like that was a big difference. He jumped on that. I don't want to do that. That's my way of expressing interest without pressing the button, is if I'm doing that. Like I tweeted a few weeks ago a trade for Jaden Reed with Jalen Polk, Javon Baker, Jatavian Sanders, and there was another guy. I can't remember who it was, but players that there was. Oh, maybe I forget who it was. Maybe it was Adonai Mitchell as well. Players with a lot of hype coming into the season around that coming into the season would have been a smash pick for Jaden Reed. And I posted that because I have such high expectations, and I still think that whatever we've seen from Polk and Baker and Sanders isn't really a reflection on what we've seen so far. Like what you believe hasn't really been shown, because you should have expected this at this point. Like you wouldn't have seen anything yet. So what you've seen shouldn't sway you from what the original consensus belief was on these players to give them the value that they were at. And so I sent this trade out. Like I was sent an offer for Jaden Reed, and I apparently offended them to get a terrible counter. It was like all my best players for like crap. And I'm like, I guess I offended somebody today. And a bunch of people were like, this was offensive. Like the original trade was so much worse than what they sent you back. And I'm like, I don't understand how. Like, so that's a big thing too. Like I'll send what I don't think is offensive. And sometimes I could be wrong. And sometimes I'm valuing players way too high than they are. But that also is like a good thing about what you were saying, like learning your league mates. And if you know that there's a player like they have Jordan Love, but they don't necessarily love all the Packers receivers.
Yeah.
You should probably learn that, because if you keep sending them Jaden Reed trades, they're eventually going to hate you and not want to do any deals with you.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I don't believe in starting with your best offer. I always tier down. So if I believe that a player is worth a second round pick, I will send an offer for 2/3 or a third and a fourth if I don't have 2/3, as like, hey, here's slightly lower than this value. Because I think you don't want someone to jump on a trade. Like you send it and then like 2 seconds later they accept you. You're like, okay, well, I was clearly off. I just did this morning. I traded for Najee Harris. I sent an offer for Najee Harris and I was giving a second round pick. I was getting Najee Harris, and the guy accepted it within like 20 minutes. And I was like, oh, was that did I overpay for Najee? And I think Najee, and it was like it's my second, so it's probably gonna be a mid to late second round pick. So I think I'm okay with that. I'd much rather would have paid a third, but I think Najee is worth an early second. And I was like, well, I'm not gonna give you my early second, which I have. But I'm okay tearing down a little bit. So and I think that's the big thing. Whenever you're trading for a player, you have to go, this player is worth X to me. This is what I'm willing to pay. And then I always tier down a tier or two. So again, if he's worth a second to me, I might send a third and a fourth for him, or a third and a fifth, or maybe 2/3, and then see what that person feels like. You're going to offend some people. It's just the nature of trades, because we don't all agree on values on players. I mean, if you look at Twitter, that's the Twitter algorithm, right? It's this player sucks, followed by a tweet that says this player is the greatest guy in the world. You're just never going to have that same value. So I don't like starting with the best. I think what I do is I go, hey, he's worth this. But here's when I said, okay, well, now we'll agree to this. And it makes, psychology-wise, it makes that person feel like they got a deal. And you're going, this is what I would have paid for him all along anyway.
This is a good trade that I pulled off a few months ago, that the negotiations, it worked out this way, that on what the trade finally was. And we kind of had to like adjust our values to find the right one. Yeah. Is I traded Terry McLaurin, or I traded Christian Kirk, Ricky Pearsall before the unfortunate shooting incident, and Gabe Davis for Terry McLaurin and 2 second round picks. And so either you love that trade on my side or you hated that trade on my side. And I was thinking, all right, well, Terry is basically the same thing as Christian Kirk right now coming into the season.
Yeah.
A second round pick for Ricky Pearsall is what I invested. And if you drafted early, like really early, you probably got him for a third, closer to a third. So I'm actually gaining value there. Some people will think, oh, well, he was worth 2 seconds with the first round draft capital. I wasn't there. I didn't think that you were ever going to get that for him. And then I really wanted to get the value back for Gabe Davis of a second round pick. And I knew I wasn't going to get it. I was only going to get a third. But I was like, how about I drop the difference between the second round pick between Ricky Pearsall, or like the extra third it would be for Ricky Pearsall of getting Gabe Davis to that extra second. And they said yes. And so that's how the trade ended up going through. I still feel good about that trade because I got Terry, who's, had games where he's showing the talent, but not really living up to what we all hoped he could be. But still, I got 2 second round picks to build on for the future, and I'd rather have those right now than Gabe Davis. And I don't know. I probably would still like Ricky Pearsall, but I also have a ton of young receivers in that room, so it's hard to justify that.
But I mean, it's at the end of the day, it's still only week 5. In most of your fantasy leagues, you probably have to week 8, 9 to make a trade, maybe 10.
Mm-hmm.
It's still early. I mean, I know it's been 5 weeks, and it seems like it's been especially this weekend was a long weekend of football with all the late games and overtimes. But there's still plenty of football and plenty of time. To expect a rookie to break out in 5 games is maybe unrealistic. I think it does take some time. So, Hoov, let's give the listeners, we're going to do 2 people that you should be buying right now in fantasy and 2 people you should be selling right now. So who's someone that people should be buying in fantasy and why?
I think you should be buying Jackson Smith-Njigba. That's the guy that I've been hyping up all off season. If you see, look at my bio. My bio literally says JSN Fan Club because I am the director. I am the president, the CEO of the JSN Fan Club. It was so easy to see. It was easy to see it from a mile away that what he was going to do this season. Now that Shane Waldron's gone out of Seattle, and what they were going to be able to do, the way that they simplify an offense from, I'm sorry, I'm spacing right now. Ryan, the offensive coordinator.
I forget his name too.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm spacing. I wrote about him plenty of times. I'm just spacing, but the way that he simplified an offense for Michael Penix.
Ryan Grubb.
Grubb, yes. Ryan Grubb. I almost called him Ryan Leaf, and I'm like, that's that it. And so, Ryan Grubb, the way that he simplified an offense for Michael Penix Jr. at Washington with the talent that he had around him. I mean, he created Roma Dunze, to be this elite route runner. And who's to say that JSN is someone that he outproduced Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave as seniors and Marvin Harrison Jr. as a freshman when he alone was a sophomore. So, he had the talent. And with someone like Ryan Grubb, creating him in that offense, he could be just as good as Roma Dunze for sure, in my opinion. And then the way, going back to Grubb with Penix, it's Geno Smith has been in how many offenses now in the NFL? Yeah. He's a veteran. And so, to be in an offense that's that simple, he's going to thrive. And so, Geno Smith has had an awesome year so far. I saw that from a mile away as well. But JSN, it never was, is he going to defeat DK or is he going to help DK? It was always yin and yang. It was Christian Kirk and Brian Thomas. It's T. Higgins, Jamar Chase. They complement each other. So JSN is someone that you should have bought at the time with the dip, but he's the guy you got to buy. And then another guy that I was hyping up heavily, and I'm so glad these are the 2 guys I probably spent the most time hyping up all off season, and he has just become a household name in fantasy this season. Wan'Dale Robinson. I thought that it was a long shot, but he had all the tools, and we've seen it from him in the past few seasons with Daniel Jones, is he could produce and put up some good numbers. And with Malik Neighbors being there, is that he makes things so much easier for Wan'Dale Robinson to be productive and be that 2 in the offense. So Wan'Dale Robinson, I really hope that you guys went into him a top 20 wide receiver right now. in the season, and where you got him, he was basically free. Wan'Dale Robinson could be this season's Puka Nacua, based off the value. There you have it, folks.
Yeah. I think with the JSN, I think we've gotten spoiled by these rookie breakout wide receivers in the past few years, the Chases, the CD Lamb, these guys that have just had these monster rookie years, and we knew JSN wasn't going to have that because Lockett was still there, and Lockett's still there, but Lockett's not nearly as good as he once was. We knew it was going to be a slower progression for JSN. I think talent was there and the system was there. It just was a matter of him finding his footing. And I agree with you. Wan'Dale Robinson is, I think, the new Jacoby Myers, Brandon Cooks type player, where it's like every year he's going to be tight end 20, 21, and you're just going to go, he's a solid tight end too, but everybody goes, oh, he was that good? You're like, yeah. He just soaks up targets. He's going to soak up yards. He's probably going to have 5-6 touchdowns. He's not a sexy name. He's not a flashy name, but he's just a consistent guy who's going to put up 12 points every week, right? Like that's what he's going to do. And he's going to have some spike weeks where he's going to put up 20. He probably will never put up, like dud weeks. He might put up 1 or 2, especially as long as Daniel Jones is there. But he's just going to be that consistent guy that's going to sneakily be wide receiver 20 every year. And you're going to go, oh, he was? Really? And you're going to go, yeah, he was. My 2 buys right now is tight end Eric All for the Cincinnati Bengals. He's a rookie. I liked him coming in. I really like what I've seen from him. The system in Cincinnati has changed this year because they got a new offensive coordinator. They are on pace to target their tight end position like 160 times. They have not targeted the tight end position as a whole over 100 times, except like once in the last 10 years. We know Mike Gesicki's still there. He's older. He has some injury history. I think Eric All can step into that role and continue to grow into that role of not quite as Trey McBride, but has that veteran in front of him like Trey McBride did with Zach Ertz, where all of a sudden you'll see Eric All midseason start taking over, playing more and more. He's caught, I think, all of his targets so far this year, which is pretty incredible. He's had 4 every week. He's catching all of them. I like him. And then I will say you should be buying Derrick Henry right now. Listen, you're going to have to pay a premium for Derrick Henry. And I think when we're talking trades, people don't want to pay up and they don't want to pay the premium because they're worried that that player won't continue to produce at that premium. I'm not worried about Derrick Henry. He's done it so many years. He's on a team that's going to continue to run the ball. I'm willing to pay the premium for Derrick Henry now. Like I'm willing to pay the premium price to get the premium running back and just ride him this year and next year and then let him ride the real well. So I think there's this penchant in Dynasty to get these guys who have futures, and we don't want to buy the aging, especially running back. In redraft, you don't want to buy the number 1 guy because you feel like he's never going to repeat as the number 1 guy when you get him. Don't worry about Derrick Henry. Buy him right now. Like just buy him and then enjoy having the number 1 running back who's going to be the number 1 running back the rest of the season and be okay with that. Like ride it with a guy who's gotten double-digit tight ends every year. Like just pay up and get them and be happy.
Yeah, I'm with you on actually both of these. I haven't talked about Eric Hall very much this offseason or very much this season, but to your argument, the price is basically free. I mean, you could offer a 3rd-round pick for Eric All probably, and a lot of people would be feeling like they'd be getting a great deal for Eric All, just to get a depth piece in their opinion off their roster, and getting some draft capital back for them. So I think that's a great buy. The Bengals have been waiting for a tight end for years. I mean, you thought that Brock Bauer was going to be the guy that they went after. You thought that Dalton Kincaid was going to be the guy that they went after, and yet they're still without a guy. So maybe they do go the Trey McBride route, and maybe Eric All is the answer. I'm not necessarily there, but for the price, why not take a shot at it? I'm the guy that's was going after Greg Dulcich at the time, was going after hypes up Jadavian Sanders, hypes up Dallin Holker. So I'm looking for guys like this. So I'm not opposed to it. And with Derrick Henry, I was talking about it actually earlier on Trade Block. We were talking about Tyreek Hill. That there's some veteran players that they're so highly productive in their veteran years that you get worried about buying into these players. Because you don't know when the drop off is going to be. And even someone like Tyreek Hill right now without a quarterback, you're seeing how low that production can really drop. And so Derrick Henry is someone that you got to ride him till the wheels fall off. And I'm not really worried about it because Derrick Henry is going to put up great numbers. He's in a great offense. And if he's going to be in a bad offense, he'll probably just retire. So I'm not really worried about it. I think that what we get out of Derrick Henry is going to either help you win a championship and worth that draft capital to go over. Because if you're really going to buy Derrick Henry, let's say there's a team out there that actually has Derrick Henry that's not contending, they probably will sell it to you at the price that you're expecting, like 2 second-round picks. No one really thinks they're going to get a first-round pick for Derrick Henry right now.
Yeah.
They probably know that. And if they're a contending team with Derrick Henry, they're probably contending because they have Derrick Henry. So they're probably not going to trade him for the price that you want. So they're probably in the mindset of ride him till the wheels fall off. And if you can get him from a contending team, you probably can get him at a good price. So I'm with you.
So who are 2 people you're selling right now in fantasy football?
Let me look at all the people that I currently have that I'm pissed off at, and let's see who are some names that come to mind.
I'll give you one of mine. I'll give you my spicy one off the top, and I think you should be selling Josh Allen right now. Listen, Josh Allen is a very good quarterback, and he is a top 3 quarterback for fantasy. But currently, he is at his max production-wise. So sell him at max price. Worst case scenario, he continues to do this. Well, you didn't lose anything then, right? Because if you sell him for max value, you didn't lose anything because you can get max value back. Most likely case scenario is that he starts to regress, maybe has some turnovers because he hasn't had many. Like he's thrown any interceptions, had a fumble or 2. Maybe he stops running the ball as much. Maybe they, go back to early in the season where he's throwing the ball less. I just see a higher probability that Josh Allen starts to come down a little bit from his maximum production that he's producing right now. If you could trade him for like a Dak Prescott who's putting very similar numbers, plus a pick, plus maybe a running back, I'm willing to sell Josh Allen at the pinnacle. We just talked about Derrick Henry buying him at the high price because he's going to continue. I don't think Josh Allen can continue being a top 3 quarterback week in and week out the rest of the season. And even if he does, you still got the premium price from his price isn't going to go higher than what it is right now.
I need to find that take. I know I said this. I said this because I was so hyped about Caleb Williams, and I don't know what platform. I'm going to find this because now I'm determined. I said this exact take, and I swear I thought it was you that I talked to about it. So I must have been wrong because I said that this is the time that if someone would have said a few years ago that I used the Cam Newton example with Josh Allen, if someone said in 2017 that you should sell Cam Newton for 3 first-round picks, and one of those picks ended up being from Wyoming quarterback, now Buffalo Bills quarterback Josh Allen, you would have won that deal in a landslide. Yeah. But at the time, people would have been like, "You're trading Cam Newton for 3 first-round picks? Like, are you crazy? You should be getting more from that." Running quarterbacks like this, they have a drop off. And I traded Lamar Jackson for Dak Prescott and like 4 or 5 second-round picks, late second-round picks. And I'm like, I'll take Dak Prescott all day because he puts up the same numbers. He doesn't have the bad weeks that Lamar has. So I'll take Dak and a bunch of second-round picks and add depth to my team. So I've said that about Josh Allen months ago. And I said that he's like the prime candidate that you should sell right now as QB1 and go get a guy like Caleb Williams and 2 first-round picks on top of it and really build a dynasty for the long haul. So I'm completely with you, and I'm going to find that take. I'm going to find it. I know I said it, and it might be on Club Fantasy itself.
Because here's the thing. If you look at Josh Allen, he's put up in my base scoring league, it's 110 fantasy points. Dak Prescott has put up 103. So you're telling me a point or 2 a week that I'm missing, and I can get Dak plus. Like I can get Dak in a second and maybe get a flex-worthy wide receiver or a tight end, or maybe I get 2 seconds and I can build for the future. I'm taking that all day. Like the difference in age is not that much. I mean, Dak is 31, but he's got a few more years. I'm worried about Josh Allen. I've always said that I'm worried about Josh Allen's injury risk. He's already got a hand injury. Like, is he going to be QB1 like he was last year, or QB2 or QB1 or QB1? He's QB6 right now.
I found it, and it was you. It was when on Optimus 525, May 25th, we were talking about this a little bit, and I put Caleb as my 3rd dynasty quarterback over Josh Allen, and that was when I was pushing it out back then. There's a few posts on here that says post is from an account that no longer exists. So obviously we were talking with someone that didn't have the greatest of takes that day. But
No.
you and I, low key, were on the right page because.
But even if you say Josh Allen is QB3 and you can trade him for QB3 prices, I'm okay with that because you're never going to lose. It's not like QB, he's going to go false and be QB1. Like 1, 2, and 3 are going to be the same price no matter what you're selling for. So even if he is QB3 right now currently he's QB6, even if you trade him for QB1 prices, he can't go higher than QB1. So you're always going to have that. So I'm selling Josh Allen, get the premium for him, reorganize your roster, get some depth. Who's someone you're selling in fantasy?
Oh man, that's such a good one. Like, thank you for reminding me about that because that's beautiful. I wrote an article all about Keenan Allen this offseason. It seems pretty easy to be selling Keenan Allen, but I actually will go one step further, and I am very, very worried about Anthony Richardson right now. I loved Anthony Richardson coming into the draft. I thought the world of him. I thought that if all the things clicked, that there was no way that this guy could go wrong if everything, if the athleticism turned into pure quarterback talent. And he got drafted in the first he would have been a first round athlete, but he wasn't a first round quarterback. And you're seeing the flaws early on. And I'm starting to worry that if this becomes an issue once again next season, who's to stop the Colts from going all in on Arch Manning in 2026?
Yeah.
That's my big thing that just keeps going through my mind. I love Anthony Richardson. I don't want it to be a thing, but I think that this might be an opportunity to trade him at the highest prices and possibly go after someone. Trade Anthony Richardson for Baker Mayfield and another draft pick right now. Baker Mayfield is quietly a top 12 quarterback, or even go after Brock Purdy and get consistency at the quarterback position and a draft pick as well for Anthony Richardson. So that's a name that I would throw out there to trade right away. And then I'm not a Chris Olave guy. I'm not a Kyle Pitts guy. I'm not a Drake London guy. So those are 3 names that I would be trading away. And frankly, I think I'm at the point I'm ready to trade Bijan as well.
Oh, that's spicy.
It's tough because I thought that there was going to be a running back that just would withstand the test of time, to be the new Christian McCaffrey. No one's Christian McCaffrey, and that's okay because that's what makes Christian McCaffrey great. And as much as I think that Bijan could have been that player and can be that player, it's just not reality. And so that's why going into this year, I still had Christian McCaffrey as my RB1 over players like Bijan and Brees. And even with the age, it's like no one's doing what he's doing. And Bijan is a alluring pick that, with the running back market the way it is, I think I'm just going to sell high with all the draft capital and try to build my team with as much depth. I mean, even someone like Braylon Allen, that was a high-end third-round pick this year, is putting up good fantasy numbers in zero RB format. So I think I'm all in on the zero RB format at this point in trading players like Bijan.
I'll give you my last sell, and it's a spicy one, especially where we are living, and I'm selling Tucker Kraft. Listen, He's done great the past 2 weeks, but who didn't play this week for the Packers? Romeo Doubs or Christian Watson. Who didn't play last week for them? Christian Watson played like 12 snaps. Weeks 1, 2, and 3, Tucker Kraft was non-existent when all those receivers were playing. So when the Packers have their full receiving core, I worry that Tucker Kraft isn't going to see the volume that we've seen. We saw in week 1, his routes run, I think, was 40 or 30. He played on 40 pass and ran 30 routes, which is pretty good to what he was doing weekly. Week 2 was 15, 13, 12 receiving routes. Week 3, he ran 14. Then all of a sudden, week 4, Christian Watson gets hurt, and he bumps up to 48. Week 5, no Watson, no Dubs. He's running 23 routes. Like, it just seems like his numbers are high because there's less volume out there for the receivers. I don't know what's going to happen with Romeo Doubs, and we'll talk about him probably in a little bit. But I just wonder if the Packers get healthy and Christian Watson, Jaden Reed, Dontavian Wicks, and or Romeo Doubs is out there, what does that leave for Tucker Kraft? I still think Luke Musgrave is going to be worked in. I just don't know if the volume's going to be there. He's not going to be this dynamic tight end, and I think you can get premium tight end. He's in that conversation of like not quite Laporta McBride, but he's up there right now with the Kittles and Pitts, and because he's done 2 weeks and the tight end landscape is woefully horrible this year, that I think you can get a premium for him. So I'm okay selling Tucker Kraft.
As someone that, like I mentioned earlier, I'm always looking for the deep tight end, and Tucker Kraft is someone that I've recently hit on because I love Tucker Kraft. I thought that he was more talented than Luke Musgrave. I'm on record saying it, and I thought that coming out of the draft as well. And I was surprised that they put that much draft capital in both guys, but I really like Tucker Kraft. I thought that he was going to really be able to see the field in Matt LaFleur's system. And so I agree to what you're saying is that he almost should be a buy, or he almost should be a sell, because not even just because of the numbers of the volume alone once all the players are healthy, but we're still in a tight end market crash right now. And like, he is in a high end offensive system, so people are going to want to buy into that anyway. So
people are going to buy the hype.
People are going to buy the hype, and I think that that's a great pick. There's probably a few other names, like same thing with the running backs. How can you really like want to invest in a high end tight end, or even like commit to a high end tight end when you can go after a Hunter Henry right now, or a Zach Ertz, or like these guys that you'd expect to not be fantasy relevant, but they're top 10 in their
top 10, yeah.
So
that's what I think. I think if you can sell high on Tucker Kraft with all the buzz he has over these 2 weeks, because if he has a down week this week, the price that you can get here is just going to drop considerably.
Bingo.
So I'm willing to sell him. And even if you're happy that you had him for 2 weeks and he probably won you 2 weeks, I think that's great. Like, sell high, like move on. Right, you could sell Tucker Kraft for a Hunter Henry, a Zach Ertz, and something else, and be okay. And I think you're getting value. So. All right, Hoov, we got one more segment. What I want you to do is hit me with your best shot on 3 NFL trades that
hit me with your best shot. Fire away.
So hit me with 3 real-life NFL trades that you think should happen, and I'll tell you which one of your 3 that I want to have happen.
This is a good one. Well, the first one.
You are the trade master. You are always theorizing fun trades.
This is the one that's really been on my mind, and we talked about Romeo Doubs for a second, so I will mention it as well. Hypothetically, let's say Romeo Doubs went to college at Nevada, and let's throw out the possibility of a double homecoming. Romeo Doubs and a 3rd-round draft pick to the Raiders for Davante Adams, coming home to Green Bay, trying things out with Jordan Love and chasing a Super Bowl, being the true wide receiver 1 in that system. Jaden Reed can be the 2, and then Wicks can be the 3. And a reunion with Josh Jacobs as well with his time at the Raiders.
All right, I like that. What else you got for me?
As much as I want to throw it out there, it's not likely. But Aaron Rodgers for Antonio Pierce, let's just get Bill Belichick as interim head coach in Las Vegas and do the whole damn thing. I'm just kidding. Let's
I don't think you've ever seen a player for a coach trade. That'd be crazy.
Yeah, it'd be a GM for a coach at this point.
Yeah.
Let's do a T. Higgins trade. I feel like that one's appropriate. T. Higgins maybe to the Raiders. Let's go T. Higgins to Las Vegas, Davante Adams to the Saints, and a 2nd and a 5th to the Bengals.
I don't mind that. All right, you got a 3rd one for me?
Let's do. All right, give me a position.
How about a running back trade?
A running back trade.
So let's say Houston. Let's say Mixon's going to be out. Who do you want Houston trade a running back for? Who should they try to go get?
Khalil Herbert.
Oh, okay.
Khalil Herbert for a 5th-round pick.
To Houston. I like that. I think I would shake that one. I love Khalil Herbert. I've always been a Khalil Herbert believer. I would love to go to Houston. Houston is like my adopted 2nd team. I love CJ Stroud. I love Tank Dell. I really want the Bills to go get Romeo Doubs. I said this to someone on Twitter the other day. Like, do the Bills need a wide receiver? Yes, but I don't think they need to go make an Adams level trade, because I'd rather see them spend that draft capital, like a 2nd-round pick, on an exterior rush defender, right? Like we've been burnt on the outside by Derrick Henry and Wale and probably Brees Hall this week on these outside runs. We can't stop them. We can stop you up the middle. We struggle to get side to side. So rather than spend a second on a defensive guy, then spend a fourth on Romeo Dubs. Like send the Packers a fourth, get Romeo Dubs in. We've already worked with the Packers. We got Rasul Douglas last year. Like let's go get Romeo Dubs, who can be a complementary piece to Keon Coleman, Khalil Shakir. He's clearly better than Curtis Samuel, who's hot trash. He's clearly better than MVS. Let's get Romeo Dubs. So I don't want him to go to the Raiders. I want him to go to the Bills. So I love the thought of Khalil Herbert to Houston. I think that'd be great.
What about this one? This has just popped in my head.
Now, what do you got?
Romeo Doubs to the Commanders.
I don't hate it. I like Romeo Doubs, and I think he's a very consistently good wide receiver. I don't think he's a 1. I think he's a solid 2 in a team. My fear with the Commanders is he an upgrade over what they have? Is he clearly he's better than Jahan Dotson, right? And is he much better than Luke McCaffrey? I don't know if he is. Or, is he going to be? Yes, I think he is just experience wise. I don't know if he's that much better than Terry is Terry McLaurin that much better? I think it's just you're getting someone the same level as Terry McLaurin, in my opinion. Like, if I'm the Commanders, I want them to go get Devontae Adams, get someone big who could be a 1 who can push McLaurin to be a 2.
Dobbs to the Steelers.
You don't hate that either. I think the Steelers make sense in terms of they need to get a receiver. Obviously, we know they went after Brandon Ayuk, or at least that was reported. I think they're in the market for Devontae Adams. I don't think Devontae Adams wants to go there. I said all along that I think Devontae Adams should go to the Raiders because I think that's the smart move for the Raiders and Devontae Adams. Romeo Doubs to the Steelers would be nice. I think he's an upgrade over, Van Jefferson and Calvin Austin. I think he's a good possession receiver. I just worry about what that does to George Pickens mentally because he's already upset. And you bring in someone who's going to be more sure-handed, who's going to get those, the third down when you need a first down, you're going to go to Romeo Doubs, not to George Pickens. So I worry about that aspect. I just worry about the chemistry on that team with George Pickens if you bring in another receiver.
Yeah. Can I ask you one draft?
Of course.
What do you think about the Dolphins tanking for Shedeur Sanders?
I've seen this talk on Twitter, that him or Travis Hunter. With that, you are basically saying the 2 is done, right? Like, that's what you have to say.
I threw out the idea of Tua loves football, and with Alex Smith, like when Alex Smith went down, his whole thing was that he didn't want to go out of football like that. He did want to come back to showcase like that he was able to make it back to the field, but he knew he didn't have a long career ahead of him. I hope that I'm wrong and Tua does have a long career, but at the same time, you have to start looking in the mirror at when this becomes an issue. And he just signed a big contract, so who's to say that as someone that he can utilize his brain and he knows the game of football so well, he loves the game of football, so why not make him a coach on the Dolphins and then bring in Shedeur, and he has that like experience of being a Dolphins quarterback to like help mentor Shedeur, and like I feel like Dion would be all in. The Dolphins organization, this is the organization that tried getting Tom Brady and Sean Payton in sleazily and lost their first round draft pick because of it. So like they're an organization that they'd be willing to bring in Dion, and Miami feels like a culture that would heavily embrace Dion and Shedeur.
Yeah, I don't hate it if you're saying Tua's done. Now, I think Tua personally should be done. I think Tua would be great in the booth. I think Tua could easily get a job as like the Pac-12 commentator for games.
Sure.
Right? Pac-12 pregame, right? Do the Hawaii, do the California thing. I think he'd be great at that. I think he's a natural fit with his personality, his smile, his presence. I think that's where he should go. And if I'm a network that's looking for someone, I make Tua an offer. I go, hey Tua, if you want to retire, here's your, like a Tom Brady offer. Like, hey, we're going to pay you whatever, not Tom Brady money, but we're going to pay you, an average commentator salary. If you want to come back, come next year, come right now. Like, you can retire today and start next week. I would make that offer to him. That might sway his decision. If that's the case, I'm not a believer in Shedeur Sanders in terms of the player. I think he's athletically gifted. I don't think he's necessarily a great player. I also that is just going to be a media nightmare with Dion because they're going to try to orchestrate where he goes. It's going to be what we saw from Caleb and Marvin Harrison and Jaden Daniels this draft class. It's going to be that times 10, all combined into one. Him and Travis Hunter. I think the way Dion's trying to orchestrate that, I don't know if I want to deal with that. Now, as a Bill friends, yeah, Dolphins, take it on because I want your team to suck. So you go ahead, Dolphins. You go get Shador. You tank. Go get Shador. Mess up your franchise for the next 10 years. Because you're gonna have to give him 5 years because Deion's not gonna let you give him anything less. Go for it. I just don't know if I would do it for me. But I think there's a valid concern I think there's a valid reasoning behind the Dolphins tanking for a quarterback. I just don't know if I would do it for Shador.
I think you're wrong. I think he's going to be better than what you think. Do you think Mike McDaniel is the right coach for a guy like Shador?
Yes. The way Mike McDaniels talks about football is he is very much like, how can I get 1% extra or find these like micro edges, micro beneficiaries on different plays and different schemes. I think he would utilize the athleticism. Sure. I think what we've seen with McDaniels is he goes, give me the athletes and I will utilize their athleticism. But I think that's great in essence, and it does really well until it gets down to like crunch time of football when it's like, hey, we need to make football plays. It's like, well, I've got these athletes. I don't have football players. He's got athletes.
Right.
And I think we've seen that with, I think he's like, hey, we can run these like weird reverse sweeps and, breaking plays and get, Tyreek or Jalen Waddle open, or we can break these big holes for, for Devin Achane or Mostert or whoever. But when it's like, hey, it's third and 1 and we need to do a tush push, do you have the football players that can do that? I just don't know if they do. I think he's a good coach. I think he's a better offensive coordinator, personally, just because of the way he talks. I think he could utilize the skill set that Shador has. I think I'd rather see him with Travis Hunter because Travis Hunter has a little more versatility in his game. I still think it's a circus, but you don't get as much of a circus because I think once they go into the draft, I think Deion's going to be full on Shador and Travis Hunter's just going to be, okay, you're going to go here. See you later, man. I got to deal with my son. So I think Mike McDaniels is a good coach. I think he's a better coach for Shador than someone like Mike Tomlin or Sean McDermott or Nick Sirianni. I think someone who can be creative with him will be important for sure. He's going to have to go to a coach that understands his unique skill set and can utilize that skill set well. I think Mike McDaniels can do that. I don't think he's the best coach for it. I think I would love to see him in a Shanahan and McVay system, which McDaniels kind of runs, but I'd rather see him with the creators of those systems, not the imitators of those systems.
Yeah, no, I preach. I said that about Robert Saleh, and that's what ultimately that's why he's not in New York anymore. So,
and that's why he got fired. So, well, Hoov, thanks so much for coming on, talking how to make trades in fantasy football. Before we get out of here, tell everybody one more time where they can find you and what you got going on.
All right, well, you guys can go ahead and find me at HoopTube on X. I got plenty of content coming at you, all different various types, on air, written, whatever you want, it's there. And you can find it at Club Fantasy FFL. On Tuesdays, I have a show called Trade Block that I'm a co-host of, as well with Dustin and Joel.
Not me, other Dustin.
Yeah, we got a great crew over there, and we got plenty of shows throughout the week that you guys can check out at Club Fantasy and at Optimus Fantasy. We got plenty of content over there as well throughout the week. And on Saturdays, most likely on Saturdays, it's towards the end of the week that most likely you can expect it. But I got plenty of bets coming at you. And like I said earlier in the episode, it's going to be going towards a great cause if we can hopefully hit. And we can raise some money towards some hurricane relief and help out some families. And I hope you all join me. So you guys can check me out there. Because it's your boy Hoov.
Yeah, thank you, Hoov. And I think it's great that you're willing to raise some money with your prop bets. So we'll be checking those out. We'll make sure we retweet them out. If you guys like this video, please hit that like and subscribe. Drop a comment. It really helps us grow as a YouTube channel. We enjoy bringing these conversations for you too. Next week, we have a special episode. So we're doing a new kind of sub-series called Innovators, where we're bringing on different guys and different companies and platforms that are innovating in the fantasy space. So we'll have Will from Fantasy Spin coming on, talk about Fantasy Spin and the innovation that is that. We'll be doing those once every 6-7 weeks or so. Just to kind of give you guys some things where, standard was the standard, then someone came up with PPR, and then, prop bets were always a thing, then someone came up with DFS, and that was the new thing. So we want to highlight these people who are doing innovative stuff. So we'll be doing those. Next week is the first one. You can check us every Tuesday, 9 p.m. or 10 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Central. We thank you, Hoov, for coming on, and we'll see you guys next week.
Thanks for tuning in to Bridge the Gap.